see you guys in the dark.
Back when I was 18, I had met a girl who seemed like she was a pretty amazing girl. Her name was Whitney. We both had mutual friends who all claimed that she was a wonderful person. Oh, how wrong they were. Before I get off track, here's the story. It was a usual Friday night at the bowling alley. My buddy Mark, who we happened to call Beetlejuice at the time. He stands a little bit taller than me, at about 6'3", with short blonde buzz-cut hair. He drove his girlfriend Ashley, who was pretty short. She stood about 5'2", had long blonde hair, and was skinny. She basically looked like a baby doll. Mark had found me sitting with some of my friends, and tells me that he has someone for me to meet. Mark tells me about a friend that he went to high school with named Whitney. As we are walking to his black Jeep Wrangler, Mark explains a little bit about Whitney, and thinks that we will hit it off just fine. Once we reach his car, I see Ashley talking to a black-haired girl, who was a little bit bigger, but still looked pretty cute. Ashley runs over and gives me a hug, introduces me to the girl. She tells me her name is Whitney, and they went to school together. As the night went on, me and Whitney talked a lot. Right before they left, I decided to get her number. After I got her number, and me giving her mine, they had left. So I decided to get back to whoever was left at the bowling alley. No sooner than I get back with my friends, Whitney has messaged me and started talking through the night with me. Once I got home, Whitney calls me. She explains that she wants to talk for a little while, so I told her that it would be better to chat that way anyways. So we talk on the phone all night long, giggling like school children. Everything was going well. We hung out the next week, and I met her mother Sheila, who was probably in her 50s, and had Whitney's niece and nephews. As the night went on, Whitney and I stayed close by. We talked through the night. Before Whitney got picked up, she gave me a deep, passionate kiss, and told me to call her later before getting in her mom's car and leaving. The days went by. We both talked about our feelings before making it official. At this time, we had hung out at her house, and Sheila had started to offer to let me stay over. I guess at the time, she had liked me, because I quickly became like a son to her. I was always helping around the house, and spending days and nights over there. Everything seemed fine for the first few months. Suddenly, Whitney claimed that I was going to go cheat one day, when I was going to be picked up by my friends. I didn't think anything of this, and explained that I spent most of my days and nights with her. We slept together, and I'm very passionate with her, so there's definitely no way that she should be accusing me of cheating. There is definitely no reason to believe that I am cheating. She accepted it. Whitney constantly called me, wanting to know what was going on, and who I was with. She started to get very clingy, but I just let it be. This went on for months, and I started getting annoyed with her. After about 5 months, I blew up at her, telling her that the only reason anyone would believe and accuse someone of cheating is if they were doing it themselves. That started a heated argument, and I told her that we needed to stay away from each other for a couple of days, so that we can figure out if the relationship was worth keeping. After a few days, Whitney had called me, saying that she was sorry and that she loves me so much, that the days have not been the same without me. I agreed, and that I could not sleep without her next to me in bed, and that I wanted to see her again. So after that phone call, everything went back to normal. We stayed at her place and did everything that couples would do. I went out with my friends many times, and with her sometimes. This went on for a couple of weeks before the accusations started up once again. One night we had a get-together at Whitney's house with Mark and Ashley. We started drinking because her mom had bought us alcohol before leaving for the weekend. After drinking for a few hours, Whitney had ran to the bathroom, and Mark went outside for a smoke. Ashley was staring at me hard, so to get away from the situation, I decided to walk into the kitchen. Ashley follows me, and then tells me that she always wanted to fuck me, that she has a crush on me, and wanted what Whitney has. Drunk and confused at what I just heard, I told Ashley that if she wasn't with Mark, and I was not with Whitney, I would definitely date her. That I can't do that to either because I love Whitney and respect Mark as one of my best friends. That conversation ended right there, and everyone came back into the living room to start drinking again. We all stayed there, and Mark took Ashley home in the morning. Suddenly, Whitney started accusing me of cheating with Ashley while she was in the bathroom. After explaining what happened, I got slapped, and she claimed that I was lying to her. Somehow she knew that I was lying to her. Nothing I said made her realize that there was no way for me to fuck Ashley in the 2 minutes of her being in the bathroom, especially since Mark went outside a minute after she ran in there. The fights waged on, and nothing that I said would stop Whitney from accusing me of cheating. So I had my last straw with her and broke it off. A few days down the road, a buddy, we'll call him Robert, confronted me with video evidence of her with a heavy-set Mexican in Walmart. Robert told me that he recorded it off of his flip phone and was waiting to show me that she was cheating. I confronted Whitney with the evidence. She denied it and claimed that he was just a friend and gave me that bullshit excuses that most women would. I gave up and walked away from her. Many weeks later, Mark and Ashley had broken up. Mark happens to go and hang out at my house to drink with me. Mark explains that he had sex with Whitney and that she claimed me and her had broken up. After many questions, Mark told me that it was just a month ago, which was shortly before me and her broke up. Mark explains that he was drunk and that one thing led to another with her. Honestly, I wasn't mad at him, but more pissed off at her because who knows how many guys she cheated on me with. After the night was over, Mark left my house and went home. I blocked Whitney from all of my social media and blocked her number. Went to a few parties and celebrated being single by getting plastered with a few of my friends. Sadly, that was the start of my PTSD from dating, and me constantly thinking whoever I'm with will cheat and leave me. Many years later, I found out that she married the same guy that she was in Walmart with, and he cheated on her, then left her with 2 children. I guess all I can say is karma is a bitch, and Whitney definitely got what she deserved. This all started about 2 years ago, when I met Chelsea. Chelsea was about 21 at the time, maybe 5'3", and weighed maybe 120 pounds soaking wet. Had beautiful red hair and piercings. She definitely was pretty dreamy. I met her through one of my friends, Caitlin. Chelsea and I hit it off. We both had similar tastes in music and spiritual beliefs. We both talked and hit it off. By the end of the night, I had asked her out. She said yes, and everything was going just fine for a few days. We cuddled and watched horror movies together. Chelsea told me that she enjoyed doing coke, and of course, it being my drug of choice, I told her that I would do it with her. We both had a couple of lines, and then had sex. I was starting to fall for her. One day, Chelsea comes over with alcohol and explains how she always drinks, and that she wanted to get drunk. So I decided to drink with her. As the night went on, she got more and more intoxicated. Then that's when I started to regret my decisions. She pulls out a book that read Feminist Manifesto. Chelsea then shoves it into my face and tells me how I should read her elaborate plans of female world domination. She then goes into tons of detail about how men should be put in fields or killed. The ones that are worthy are put in factories for breeding purposes like cattle. I tell her that there is no way that that would ever happen, and that it goes against human rights. Next thing I know, Chelsea is screaming about me, how I am wrong, and every man is a pig, that men are useless, and women are the superior sex. As this goes on, all I want to do is shut her the fuck up. After the whole conversation was over, and I let her rant, she passes out on my couch. I go into my office to go play video games. When she suddenly wakes up, she acts like nothing has happened, starts drinking once again. My dumbass decides, okay, maybe she is just a different person when she's drunk. No big deal. Once she gets picked up, I noticed on Facebook a post that she posts about a meme, about men being useless pigs, and a rant about how feminism should rule the world. I get tired and eventually break it off with her. At this point, she made me hate feminism and anything to do with it. After we broke up, I kept hearing about how Chelsea claims that I was everything that she hated in a man. The words that I heard was chauvinistic, asshole, testosterone-driven, and of course, a basic manly pig. Then later on, I see her down the road at a Walmart with a man who threatened to beat her in public and accused her of cheating on him. After I leave, and a few days has passed, she messages me and tells me how she hates the man that she is with, but can't get away from him, how he assaults her, and she once had fallen for him and didn't know why. After I told her that I can't help her, she then tells me that she regrets letting me go, and that I was the best thing that has ever happened to her. After hearing her beg and plead for me back, I told her that I couldn't deal with her and how she felt about men. I ended up blocking her, and I haven't talked to her since then. I don't remember the exact day Colin became part of my life. A glimpsed neighbor that I'd sometimes nod to. I knew he was a long-distance truck driver, and I think he knew who I was. When our paths had crossed, he would seldom meet my gaze. I don't even remember when I first heard his name. A familiar voice had uttered it, though my wife's. It wasn't by way of an introduction, although years later I did wonder how that might have gone. "Honey, you've seen that handsome man with the blonde hair, broad shoulders, and light tan who lives at number 18? His name is Colin." But no, rather more mundanely, she referred to him as matter-of-factly in conversation. "Colin took the remains of that old fence to the dump for me today." Or, by the way, Colin mended the lawnmower, then he mowed the lawn. Colin was indeed the helpful friend who lived down the road. It is easier now to see that he was more of an astute people watcher than he seemed. He must have known that my job often took me abroad, and he probably had me profiled as a workaholic. As insensitive to my wife's needs as I was, trusting of her fidelity. By then we'd been married for some time and had 2 young children. While I was away, my wife stayed at home taking care of the kids. I thought that we were happy, but in truth, I was too wrapped up in my job to even know. My life went on, and secretly, day by day, it was written down. My wife was a meticulous diarist, and spent 20 minutes every evening logging the day's events. One afternoon I walked into her bedroom, and noticed that she left her diary on the bed. This was unusual, but stranger still. It was open. I went to put it in her bedside drawer, but as I closed the pages, I caught sight of the word Colin. My immediate impulse was to slam the diary shut and try to forget that I'd seen his name before it had a chance to sink in. Instead, I started to read. The entry stretched back months, detailing their covert liaisons, romantic, practical, but mostly sexual. The descriptions ranged from the relatively tame, kissed and cuddled today, it was lovely, to the kind of things that you get into the racier passages of a Mills and Boon novel. Nothing too graphic, but surprisingly comprehensive. My jaw ached with panic, and I felt the sudden flush of adrenaline. Of course I confronted her. I wanted to yell at her, but my initial anger was quickly extinguished by shock. I felt numb, confused, with tears in my eyes. She said that she hadn't been happy with me for years, and that he provided an escape. At that moment, I didn't know what to say. It was 4 or 5 hours before we would sit down and talk. We discussed the usual options, including divorce, but decided to stay together for the sake of our children, make a fresh start. The next day, she told Colin that it was over. We hadn't seen him for a couple of weeks. He'd been driving on the continent, but he never did return. The news that he had gone missing on a ship, presumed lost overboard, was taken to us by the next-door neighbor. My wife's first reaction was stunned disbelief, as was mine. Then she turned away and covered her mouth, trying to stifle any sobs that she had, thoughts and emotions more tangled than ever. I tried to comfort her. Colin's death was confirmed by positive identification of a body that was washed up on the beach. Some weeks later, my wife asked if we could drive to the crematorium so that she could lay some flowers and say her final farewells. It felt strange, but in the hopes of her finding some kind of closure, I told myself that it was the right thing to do. Somehow, and completely irrationally, I felt involved in Colin's death, as if a personal timeline had been derailed on my behalf, and destiny rewritten to rescue a failing relationship. Slowly we tried to put it behind us, and his name was never mentioned again. Years later, we had another child, and our marriage entered a new, happier phase. I vowed to be more attentive. and adjust my work-life balance, but I couldn't forget the affair, especially how close it had happened to home. I should have trusted my instinct. Many years later, she ran off with my best friend. So I've been in love with my girlfriend for almost a year now. She's the most amazing and pretty girl that I will ever meet, and I cannot get over the fact that I am in a relationship with this woman. Everything was fine over a year. Plenty of sex and gifts, and love between the two of us. One day I thought that I'd drive to her house and surprise her with some chocolates and flowers, as she told me she had been having it rough lately. When I arrived at her house, she happens to live with her parents, by the way, I noticed a new car in the driveway, but shrugged it off as maybe a new family member car or something. I walked up to the front door, holding my flowers and chocolates, and walked straight in because the front door was unlocked, and no one answered when I knocked. I proceeded to hear plenty of moaning and rough movement coming from her bedroom, and my heart instantly dropped. I was hoping to God that it wasn't what I thought, but sadly it was true. I turned the corner to see a man basically balls deep in the girl that I loved the most. I've never felt more destroyed in my life. I dropped the chocolates and flowers in fright, and they heard it and looked directly at me. She tried to apologize to me, but words couldn't fix what I just saw. I felt no emotion, no feelings, just nothing. I walked back to my car while she vigorously tried to apologize, but I continued to hop into my car and drive off without saying a single word for the whole day. I never did anything wrong to her. I loved her so much. I showered her with gifts and took her on adventures that she will never forget. She had it all with me, but sadly she crushed it in a heartbeat when I caught her with that man.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.